On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers in our hometown of Green Bay. We are the official podcast of the Lot 1 Tailgate Party, which is at Lambeau Field every home game. This is episode 87, created October 24th, 2024. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minnesota, and Neil on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. Tonight I'm having a Bullet Old Fashioned on the rocks.
And the Packers drove over the Arizona Cardinals like a truck. So I am having a Big Truck Crew Cab IPA.
And taking a look to week 7, I've got a frothy drink called a Midnight Cowboy. You can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. And just the audio is available on Apple Podcast as well as Spotify by searching for Green Bay Chat. What's happening this week? You may notice we have a guest in the fourth square tonight. He was a 5th-round draft pick of the Green Bay Packers in 2002, selected number 164th overall. He played the position of quarterback, and his name is Craig Nall, hailing from the great state of Louisiana. Craig, thank you for joining us. Please say hello and tell us what you're drinking.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Love getting to kind of chop it up with some Green Bay guys, tell some funny stories. I'm drinking a nice cold glass of water. My drinking days are over. I went pro and retired early, as they say. So
that's fair enough. We appreciate it. So how this all got started is when we go out in bars in Wisconsin, we tend to find different bars have strange pieces of Packer memorabilia here and there. And Neil, back in June, happened to be at the Redwood Inn and saw a Craig Nall jersey, autographed, framed, matted on the wall, took a picture of it, put it on Instagram, tagged Craig in it, and Craig, being the courageous guy that he is, says, "Hey, these guys seem pretty cool. I'm gonna jump on board." And we've been friends on Instagram since then. And we just said, "Craig, you want to come and be a guest?" And he said yes. So we appreciate you for that. But Neil, first of all, what were you thinking when you saw that Craig Nall jersey and you said, "I got to put this online"?
It's always seeing memorabilia from former Packers players, and it's easy to put a Favre or Rodgers or something like that up. It's very different to put up players who had a more niche role for the Packers. But, you know, the Packers family is something that is from all of the players that have contributed over the years. And it's always great to see any former Packers players photo, signature, whatever that's up in any place. And that's one of the things that's fun about going to different bars in Wisconsin is you see all sorts of different things all over Wisconsin.
Craig, how many autographed Craig Nall jerseys are out there? Do you remember that one?
I do remember it, but there aren't many. I mean, they gave me basically 2 jerseys for the season. So after 4 years, there's probably like 8, maybe 10. I've got a couple of them at home, and I've given a few of them away. One of them to my good friend, Johnny Smits of the Redwood Inn. Became friends with him while I was there. Great guy.
So with that said, you obviously for your time in Green Bay must have made some friends in Green Bay. I'm curious, like how often do you come back? I know they do the alumni events. Have you come back, and what's that been like for you?
Yeah, I've made it back for a few games. The last time I went there was, I think, 2 or 3 seasons ago. It was a Detroit Monday night game, and they had me kind of going from suite to suite and talking to the fans and tell a couple of stories, have a drink. I was there for about 6 or 7 minutes and like, all right, next. So for the 1 through 3 quarters, that's all I did. And finally, the 4th quarter, I was able to go sit down and watch the game, and thankfully we won. But I don't get the opportunity to come up as much as I would like. I still haven't been able to get my boys up there. I've got 2 boys that are 16 and 14. And I was hoping to do it this year, but starting a new job, my schedule is kind of off. We had targeted the Texans game because I played for the Houston Texans as well. I was up there just recently, I don't know, probably 2 months ago now. Aaron Campman was inducted into the Packers Hall of Fame. Aaron and I were drafted same year, same round, along with Clay Matthews. He was inducted as well. So I was able to go up, but didn't get to catch a game or practice or anything like that. I had tickets to the San Francisco game, but work schedule is not going to allow me to do that. So we're going to have to look at next year, potentially getting up there.
Whenever you make it up, you are more than welcome to hang out at the Lot 1 tailgate party. You just let me know, and I'll make sure we make some accommodations for you so that
definitely
people don't mob you or anything like that. But it would be great to see you down there and hang out with us. You mentioned Aaron Campman. I wanted to throw that out there. We said you were a fifth-round draft pick, but I believe you were the second of the two fifth-round draft picks. Aaron went a few ahead of you. Is there something about being in the same round that kind of provides some camaraderie there? That did you guys connect that way?
Think so. I mean, he was 5A, I was 5B. We were also roommates during training camp and on the road. So I have a very special place in my heart for Campy. He's got a beautiful family. His wife and kids were there, so I got to catch up with them. But well deserving, man. The guy did things the right way. He was raised right. Great teammate. So I got invited and said I wasn't going to miss it. So we made
Can't
it
say
happen.
no to that, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about that draft in 2002. Now, you finish your college career. Alonzo Highsmith, actually a legend in scouting, is the guy who spotted you, right? And
Yeah.
did anyone give you a hint that you were going to get picked or that Green Bay was looking at you?
So I spent 4 years at LSU and then just wasn't getting to play like I thought I should. So I transferred to a 1AA school called Northwestern State in Natchitoches, Louisiana. Had a good season there. But Alonzo, I believe, had come to a game that we played against Sam Houston, and Josh McCown was their quarterback,
Yep.
who I think they were really kind of targeting. But he came back and he said, hey, there's another guy that we need to kind of pay attention to. So leading up to the draft, I was in Denver where my agent was based. I was training there for 3 months. I came home from my pro day and really hadn't heard any news or any communication with Green Bay until the week of the draft. Got a phone call from somebody up there asking if I was going to be at school on Wednesday. They wanted to send the offensive coordinator down for a private workout. So Coach Rossley came down Wednesday with a film guy, had a great workout, did well in the classroom on the board, and they drafted me on Sunday. So it was kind of a whirlwind.
Wow.
I wasn't really expecting it, but
I read that was your birthday too, correct?
yeah, it was also my birthday, April 21st, 2002. I turned 23 and got drafted the same year, same day.
So now your head coach, Mike Sherman, we'll talk about your quarterbacks coach, Darrell Bevel, as well. But when Green Bay makes the call, you clearly knew they had a 32-year-old quarterback in Green Bay that had been around for 10 years and hadn't missed a game, named Brett Favre. What's going through your mind at this moment? Like, why do they want me to come into town?
Yeah, I was a huge fan of Brett, watching him, just the kid out there on the field and the toughness that he displayed, obviously in winning football games and the Super Bowl. They hosted the Super Bowl he won was in New Orleans, and being from Louisiana, it was very memorable for me. I was a senior in high school when that happened. I was kind of in shock. I was actually in the backyard with my uncle. We were playing horseshoes. We had about 30 people over for my birthday, but also maybe the draft experience. So when I got a call from a 920 area code, I told Uncle Rah, I got to go inside and handle this call.
I think I might know who this is from.
Yeah. And about 5 minutes later, my name came across the TV, and I've got a very special picture. I'm on the phone, and my dad's got his arm around me. My dad passed about 2.5 years ago, so very special picture of draft day when I'm on the phone with the Packers right before my name hit the ticker. So it was a great day. Yeah.
But that quarterback room, so you get into town and Brett Favre and Doug Pederson are already there. Mm-hmm. Please tell me you learned a lot from these two guys.
Definitely. Yeah. They've been around a while. I think Doug's actually a year older than Brett, and Darrell Bevel, who's our quarterback coach, he was even younger than both of those guys. Yeah. So they were the elder statesmen. I learned a lot from both of them in different ways. Obviously, trying to learn how Brett is able to make certain throws. We were taught early on, don't look at his footwork because it's all over the map. You're not going to take any footwork clips from him and make a training tape. Doug was very smart when it came to X's and O's. We used to call him the front doctor because he could look at the film and he will tell you, oh, that's a 53 wide boss or 44 sup, whatever. He would just be able to tell you exactly what these different 7-man fronts are. And me and Brett were like, I don't know how the hell he knows all this stuff, but so I knew he was destined for a coaching career when he was done. Then Darrell being a Wisconsin Badger. So Brett being from Mississippi, I'm from Alexandria, Louisiana, Doug from Monroe, Louisiana. Us three are considered rednecks, but we used to joke, say we got 3 rednecks and a Mormon in our quarterback room. So we taught Daryl some stuff too.
Nice.
But it was a great room. We hunted, we golfed together, we did a lot of things together off the field as well. Which you kind of need when one guy is playing. You got to have the support of the other two guys. So I think a friendship is very much a key factor of that engine working.
I was trying to find your draft measurables or your pre-draft measurables. I didn't find any good information out there. I was curious, so when you went and shook Brett's hand for the first time, who's got a bigger hand, you or him?
That's just slightly bigger than mine, but like by about a half inch or so.
Okay.
I'm
So
right at 10
he engulfs
inches. I
that
think
ball, doesn't he, when he holds on to it?
yeah, he almost wraps around it. Interesting side note, it's not just his hands, his feet. He's got some long toes too. He's the only person I've ever seen that could pick up a baseball with his toes. And he would do it. It was like a circus trick. He'd put one on the ground in the locker room and he'd pick it up with his foot and
Wow.
Could he throw it? Could he throw it with his foot as hard as he threw the ball?
probably, yeah, probably so.
So you finish your rookie year with the Packers, and obviously with that quarterback room and with Favre never missing a game, you don't get to play a lot. So they gave you the option of playing in NFL Europe with the Scottish Claymores. Can you tell us a little bit about playing in NFL Europe? Because this is something that's sort of a foreign experience. Like, what is it as far as the fans? What is it as far as the attitude of the players towards the game? Tell us about playing in Scotland.
It's funny you say they gave me the option.
Not so much.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I really had a great time, and I'm very thankful for that opportunity. But I had asked the coaching staff when the season was over if they had plans to send me to Europe because I only started 12 games in college. So I knew that I needed some development. My whole rookie year was spent overhauling my throwing motion. I mean, 30 minutes before practice, me and Coach Bevel were out there throwing into the net, filming stuff. I played baseball in high school. I was a state champion in the javelin, also threw it for 2 years in college. So I had some residual technique, if you will, from those different sports that I kind of needed to get out and be able to throw the ball a little bit more accurately than I was in college. So I spent a lot of time with Coach Bevel just working on my throwing motion and learning the West Coast system. So season gets done. I asked them if they were going to send me to Europe. They're like, no, we think you're going to be better served being here during, mini camps and everything, learning our system. So like, okay, so I kind of make my schedule for the off season, trip to the beach or whatever it might be. And then kind of mid-February, I get a call from Coach Tom Rossley saying, hey, we think we're going to send you to Europe. And not to put any pressure on you, but today is the last day that we can allocate. We're going to do it as long as we can find an offense that suits what we're doing. So he called me back about an hour later and said, you're going to Scotland. I'm like, okay, here we go. So
were you married at this time? Do you have a family running at that time? Or were you here on your own?
I was about to be engaged.
Okay.
So I had a girlfriend from college, but they allocate me over there. We had a 2-week training camp in Tampa. So we went there and then made final cuts, and then we went across the pond.
How is that getting uprooted like that? It's almost a military deployment, right? It's like, hey, I'm leaving. Yeah. I'm going here. You guys are going to get to hang out here for a while without me.
Yeah, pretty much. But I welcomed it. Ken Marjoram was our offensive coordinator, and he was a receiver for the '85 Bears and was very much in the West Coast system. So it was almost identical to what we were running in Green Bay. So it fit very well. We led the league, I think 440 something yards of offense that we averaged for a 10-game season. So it was a great experience to me. It was very much relaxed in terms of the practices. It wasn't as intense as the NFL. There's not as much money involved. We got paid $1,000 per game, right? But it was more about the opportunity to play and put some game tape together in a professional setting. We started off a little bit slow, but then we ended up winning the last 4 games. We lost in a coin toss for the championship game. It was a 3-way tie with Frankfurt and somebody else. And we hosted the World Bowl that year. And we lost on a coin toss.
I was going to ask about that because, by all accounts, it looks like it was a successful season for you. You had 18 touchdown passes, 95.9 quarterback rating, 7.9 yards per attempt. All the numbers look great. You were apparently all NFL Europe in that year as well. So congratulations on that. But yeah, I was going to specifically ask, how do you end up with 3 teams at 6-4 and you end up not being a part of the championship game? But you've just answered that question. So
Yeah, it was a shame.
Playing in Europe was a double-edged sword. I guess a Claymore is a double-edged sword. So you got the full feeling of that double-edged sword then.
Yeah, definitely did. So my family had come over for the last game and they were planning on staying there for a week. But the protocol is as soon as the season's over, like the next day, everybody's on the plane.
Wow.
And so I was like, man, my family just got here. There's got to be something I can do to stay. So they're like, okay, well, I got with the marketing department and they had a couple of like interviews and I did an autograph signing at a Foot Locker or something that week that weren't them paying for my hotel for the week. So
Okay.
I did get to stay and go to the game, which is great.
So what was the fan experience in these European stadiums? I mean, like how many fans were there? I mean, did the fans get what was going on or was it sort of a curiosity for them as well?
So I would say that the German population loves American football. And if we played in Dusseldorf or Berlin or Frankfurt, we would have probably 30, sometimes 40,000 people in the stands. So it was a really good showing. Then you go to Barcelona, there's 10,000 people there and 9,500 of them have whistles. So it was strange, but in Scotland, it was great. We didn't fill Hampden Stadium by any means, 10, 15, maybe 20,000 people. So not nearly as loud. We didn't have to work on crowd noise as much as you do in the NFL. But I really enjoyed getting to kind of immerse myself in the culture over there. It took me a couple of weeks to be able to cross the street without really freaking out because they drive on the wrong side of the road. But getting the chance to go out and work with some of the guys in their grassroots program, and they got like a 30 and older league that are still out there playing full contact football, and getting to share a little bit with them. They're very passionate about it. They just don't have the people with the expertise to teach them what to do. So I know that's changing a little bit in today's culture. There are people that are actually going over to Europe and hosting camps and stuff. So I don't know, it's becoming a global sport, but Scotland was great. I really enjoyed it. The people were awesome. Took me a while to understand what the hell they were saying, but one thing that was great. So all of our home games were on Sunday, but all of our away games were on Saturday and flying through customs. So we would leave Friday afternoon. We would get to the host city. We usually had somebody that would give us a tour and kind of show us around. Saturday we'd play the game, but then we stayed there Saturday night. So we would hook up with the other team and go out and do all that kind of stuff. And then we would fly back on Sunday. So I really got a chance to take a picture at the Berlin Wall. We saw the red light district in Amsterdam. We didn't always partake in everything that they have to offer, but the stadium that we played in Berlin was where they had the Olympics and was it 36 or whatever, Jesse Owens or whatever. I got to play on that field. Barcelona, we actually slept on the beach Saturday night.
Because
some
you
coaches too. Yeah, we had a couple of coaches there too. We grabbed a pillow and a sheet or whatever and said, we're going to do it right. So
nice.
It was fun. Yeah.
So you had mentioned your friendship with Aaron Campman. Was there anybody that you connected with or are you still in touch with from your days in NFL Europe?
Great question. There's a couple people that I connect with social media wise.
Yeah.
Robert Flickinger is one of them. I actually met him just a couple of years ago. I think it was like the AFCA coaching convention or whatever. He was there. Yeah, we were together for just a short amount of time, for about 3 months. I still remember a lot of those people.
It sounds like you had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we did. I mean, we're all kind of, in our early 20s trying to figure out, if we're going to be able to make this a career. Some of us did, other ones, One thing about NFL Europe, though, you don't want to continue to go back there. It is a developmental league.
Sure, it's like minor league baseball. You don't want to make a career out of it. But you mentioned getting that playing time. Playing time is the most important thing, right? How does that then help you, when you come back to Green Bay? Where did your growth and development go then after that back into the NFL?
I think getting the game to slow down a little bit. You hear about people talk about the game slows down after a while. Really, the more you have to think, the slower your body reacts. So getting a chance to get in the huddle and call these lengthy plays and execute them versus a live defense and somebody like the game planning aspect of things, I was very involved with our offensive coordinator. So not just our regular meetings, I would stay afterwards with him and tell him some of my ideas or things that I think might work that week. And sometimes it actually got implemented into our game plan. So I just not having played a whole lot and then really starting 10 games at a 1AA level. And now you're talking about the Green Bay Packers versus the Chicago Bears and how everybody out there seems to be running a 4.240, and things are just super fast. So getting a chance just to get my feet wet and get some of those valuable reps in my system helped the game slow down a little bit. So when I got back in that mini camp in 2003, things kind of made a little bit more sense than just drinking from the fire hose like the first year.
So as far as I can tell, looking at your statistics, your first game action was in one of the most memorable Packers games of all time, the game after Brett Favre's dad died, where the Packers beat the Raiders 41-7. And your numerical statistics, 2 for -2. I assume those were just the 2 kneel downs at the end of the game. Tell us about that game and what the excitement was among the players for Brett and that camaraderie among the team for that game.
Yeah, that was definitely a memorable night. Just a quick little footnote. In that game, all 6 quarterbacks played. So their 3 took snaps and our 3 took snaps, and none of them were due to injury. So I don't know if that's ever happened in NFL history, but so we went out there. It was a Monday night game, but we flew out on Saturday. And especially a long trip like that, Coach Sherman liked to do that. Sunday, I don't normally I get invited on these, but Brett, Doug Pederson, and Ryan Longwell were out playing golf. I didn't get invited on that one like I did like TPC Sawgrass and a couple other places. But Deanna, Brett's wife, called Doug to give him the news. She could not call Brett and get the words out, so she called Doug instead. So they rushed back to the hotel, and I remember having an emergency meeting. It was me, Doug Pederson, and Daryl Bevel saying, we don't know if Brett's going to play. It's way too early to make that decision. So now we have to be prepared. So we're going over the game plan from start to finish, thinking that both of us might end up having to play that night. So later on, we have an 8 o'clock team meeting, and Coach Sherman gets up and he obviously lets everybody know what had happened with Big Irv. And to our amazement, Brett said that he wanted to talk to the team. So he came out. And I don't remember everything he said. I just remember there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Just the passion and I don't know, the mental toughness for him to get up in front of everybody just a mere couple hours after his dad passed away. I lost my dad in March of 22. So I couldn't imagine having to go play a game the next day. I don't know how he did it, but he basically stood up there and said that he was going to play, and it wasn't to honor his dad, even though he thinks his dad would want him to, but he said, I've made a commitment to this team, and if I can play, I'm going to play. So that's the reason why I'm playing. It's not for anything else other than this is my team, and I'm going to go out there and give it all I've got. So threw for 399 yards in 3 quarters. Doug came in and played the 4th quarter basically, and then it came time for us to just take a knee and run out the clock. Funny story. So I'm like, okay, great. Monday night, I'm getting the snap, So I'm running out there on the field, and all of a sudden somebody kind of pulls me by my collar when I'm about at the numbers. And I turned around, I was like, what? And I had some note cards in my back, in my pants that I used to steal signals. Doug taught me how to steal signals. And
you don't want to go out there with those.
I was so excited. I forgot to put those on the bench. So they're like, hey, man, you got to put these up. Like, all right, thanks.
You mentioned that, Craig, and that's probably something that doesn't get talked about a lot because you ran scout team up quite a bit, I'm guessing, right? So you had to know what these teams were running. And from that, did you pick it up pretty easily when you would watch the other teams to know what they were running after doing their offense all week?
Doug and I would fight for scout team reps. And obviously he's the number 2 guy, so he kind of got the nod most of the time, but we made it competitive. If we go into like a 7-on-7 versus the defense and we're running scout team, we had a little system that if you completed every pass, the other guy would owe you $100. But if he had an incompletion and that I went in there and completed the rest of my passes, then I get $100. and you only got like one, maybe two checkdowns during that whole period. Sometimes the coach would tell me, "Hey, you go in there and run this," and other times Doug would exert his dominance and push me out the huddle and say, "No, these are my reps." Like, okay, fine. But sometimes we're having to get out there and do our best Peyton Manning impersonation and just sit there and just throw out a bunch of garbage words and just word salad for 30 seconds. It's the most awkward thing. I remember playing Michael Vick when he was in Atlanta. And obviously, I ran a 4.9 in my pro day. I'm not Michael Vick. So they would have one of our DBs or a receiver come over there and basically run around so our defense could get used to him. But when it came to the signals, we had a system. We had our scouting department would go watch the team the week before, and they would kind of transcribe what the signal giver was putting out there, and he put on a piece of paper, and I take that and look at the film. Like, okay, well, he touched his head 25 times. And I look at the film. Well, 20 of those was cover two. So that's a pretty good tell that if the signaler touches the top of his head, it's cover two. And I would always just wait the first quarter. There's really nothing that pressing for me to give Brett any information in the first quarter. We're still kind of figuring things out, but we were always taught if you're going to give him some information, you have to be 100%. And before I took over, Doug was still doing this, so I learned from Doug. And we're having a home game against Minnesota, and Doug tells Brett, "Hey, strong dog," which is the middle linebacker and the strong linebacker blitzing. Well, we failed to understand in the moment. We had motion. One of our receivers crossed the ball and went to the other side, which changed the defense's strength. So we thought it was coming one way. Brett, before the offensive line got to the line of scrimmage, made his protection call. And then we motioned the guy, and they came from the other side. It was a sack fumble, and I remember Darrell Bell was pretty pissed. So
just
you
Darrell?
had to be, yeah. I mean, he doesn't really cuss, but he might have let one slip at that moment. But
he was less than pleased with the outcome. In other words,
less than pleased. So you got to be 100% if you're gonna give him any information. But it kept me in the game. I really enjoyed doing that. Now defense has the headset as well, so it kind of took one of my roles on the team away.
Taking a look at that, I'm curious, did you, talking about Doug Pederson, obviously became a great coach. We mentioned one of the guys, you mentioned him actually, one of the guys that was in the same draft class as you, as Josh McCown. Had a great career in the NFL. He's now quarterbacks coach in Minnesota. Was that ever something in the cards for you? Did you look to get into coaching because of just having that inherent knowledge of how the systems work?
I mean, I've thought about it, definitely. I know my parents kind of wish I would have. I haven't for a number of reasons. When I moved to Texas end of 2007. My last year was 2008. I didn't leave on my own accord. I quit getting opportunities. And I felt like I was better than a lot of these guys that are getting 3-year contracts that had started one or two games. So I felt a little jaded by football for a while. So the first 2 years removed, I didn't watch any games. I didn't go to anything. I didn't want anything to do with football. But eventually I started doing some private lessons and eventually got noticed by Trent Dilfer with the Elite 11. So I've been on staff with them for 12 years now. But in terms of like a real coaching job, a couple of factors. Like I know I'd probably be great at the high school level, but I didn't really want to do that. I felt like I would be better as an offensive coordinator in college. But I know this is going to sound like a lot of excuses, but recruiting is like a bad word to me. I don't want to have to go into somebody's living room and lie to them.
Make promises you may not be able to keep or even begin
to.
Yeah,
exactly. So because I've been on the other side of that. The other thing is if you're with a staff and coach, y'all are winning, chances are in 3 years you're moving.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing good, chances are he's getting fired and you're moving. And we really like where we live in McKinney, Texas. I just didn't want to do that. The NFL level, absolutely not. It's a 365-day a year job. And the other thing, it might sound kind of crazy, but I hate watching film. It's like a necessary evil. And the guys that are successful, they geek out on watching opponent film and self-study and all that stuff. And there's so many other things I'd rather do than turn on the tape and watch that. So I don't know. I get my coaching itch scratched a little bit with the the private sector. I know there's a need for people like me that have the experience that I do that can work with these kids when the coaches aren't able to. So I feel like I'm still serving a purpose in that realm. I just haven't made a career out of coaching. Just not me.
Craig, you've got two teenage boys. How are you going to be as a sports dad in the stands? Are you going to be able to sit in the stands and sit on your hands, or are you going to try to be more involved when they start playing hard?
I'm pretty chill. I'm not a rah-rah type of guy. I've never really have been. So I watched my son who's playing in freshman ball. He's in ninth grade at McKinney North High School. And there's another dad that sits up there. His son's a receiver. My son's a tight end and linebacker. And JW has coached for like 15 years. He just retired and he's doing some other stuff now. But we sit there and we talk ball, but we don't yell. You know, I can't stand the helicopter parents that think they know everything and they're always complaining about the refs. I'm very much just pretty reserved. I don't yell. I encourage my son Mason when he's done. Like, great job. You know, it's always good, but I give him a compliment, but here's how you can kind of improve. And it's just some things that I've picked up, you know, coaching these camps is to validate what they're doing, but at the same time, you don't settle. Like Mason's playing tight end and he has a good initial punch, but then he turns around to find the ball and his guy ends up making the tackle. Like, you got to stay with him. Don't worry about where the ball's going. I like to sit back and observe. I don't want to be too involved. There's times for me to kind of add my 2 cents, but I'll let him figure it out. You know, he's a smart kid. He's got good coaches.
Do the other parents know that one of the kids has a dad who played in the NFL, and how does that impact their interactions with you?
Yeah, I think most of them do. You know, they'll expect me to know everything. Some of these rules in high school I don't understand. It's just different. But I think at one point, maybe when Mason's out of high school, and I think I might get into like refereeing. It seems like something that definitely needs to improve is high school referees. Some of these guys are like a joke.
Yeah.
I don't mean to badmouth anyway. I'm not bringing up any specifics, but it just seems like the
room
state
for
of the
improvement
union of high school refereeing is terrible.
I'll agree with you there because I spend Friday nights at a local high school doing their public address announcing. And there definitely needs to be a youth movement, I think, in refereeing. There are some really old guys that are refereeing. You know, I'm sure the Division I, Division II, they're probably younger. But when you get down to where my team plays at Division IV, and there's a couple of divisions even smaller than that, you wonder what kind of talent is out there. So I think the WIAA in particular really needs to get a youth movement and kind of make it more, I don't know what the word is, more attractive somehow to get guys out there because there's a lot of guys who have played the game. And I don't know, maybe they don't want to get yelled at by parents all game long or things like that. There's certainly a stigma that goes in, but I agree with you, Craig. I think that's a place where we need people to get involved.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to be tough-skinned and mentally tough to be able to do that. But I've played in the NFL; I can handle it. You know, I feel like it's a need. You know, a need for guys that are knowledgeable, that have attention to detail, that are decisive. You know, a lot of the things that inherently an NFL quarterback possesses. I don't know. So I'm thinking about it. I've got a couple years to kind of think about it, but I've got a really good friend of mine. His name is Tab Slaughter. He's an NFL ref now.
Okay.
He was a center in college. We actually played for the same coach. So I had Steve Roberts at Northwestern State for the year that I was there. As soon as that season was over, Coach Roberts took the head job at Arkansas State, and Tab was a center there. So we played for the same coach. And then next thing you know, we live in McKinney and we're in the same Bible fellowship group at church. And then Tab was a ref in the Big 12. So he was in that league for about 10 years. And now this is his third season in the NFL. His dad's on the rules committee, so there's a little nepotism going. But I enjoy getting to talk with him about refereeing. It's kind of sparked a little bit of interest in me. So we'll see. I'll let you know.
Quick side question, just because you made me think of it. On the center quarterback snap, a fumbled snap, whose fault is it?
Politically correct. It's mine.
Neil's laughing because he loves this question.
The politically correct answer is it's the quarterback's fault. It doesn't mean we're not going to go over there and have a conversation. I'm going to tell him to get his head out of his ass.
I tell you
I mean,
that all
there's
the
times
time,
where
don't I, Neil? It always comes down to the quarterback's fault, doesn't it? Yep. Yeah. You're right. It's the politically correct. It's the gentleman's
real
way.
quick. Yeah, real quick on that. So when I signed with Houston during the middle of the season, because Matt Schaub got hurt, Kubiak's the head coach. So it's just the two of us. I'm running all the scout team, and every now and then I got a couple of reps on our offensive stuff, but I could not get the snap from the center, from the starting center. His name was Chris Myers. Great player, but I mean, 3 out of 4 snaps I would fumble. The other one I would kind of catch on my chest and hand the ball off or whatever. And finally, Coach Kubiak is like, "No, what the hell is going on? Why can't you get the snap?" I said, "Coach, I'm getting the tip of the ball. I don't know how." Finally, I was putting my hand under his left hamstring, and it was still missing the outside. I was like, "You're not going to believe me, Coach, but I cannot." Like, so we pulled up the film of our 9-on-7 period where the camera is in the end zone, and we're looking down here, and I shit you not, I'm taking the snap, and you can see half the ball outside of my framework of my body. That's how far the snap was going to the left. And I talked to Matt Schaub. I was like, "Dude, I don't understand how y'all get the snap from under." So, I mean, as much as I wanted to play, I was praying that Sage didn't get hurt because we're playing Baltimore and Ray Lewis and Suggs. And like, oh man, this is going to be terrible. I'm going to be in the shotgun the whole game.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that was my fault, right? But I had no idea where I'd put my hands. I was baffled. I couldn't figure it out.
So let's go back to the Green Bay Packers and let's talk about your 2004 season, which one could argue is one of the greatest Packers quarterbacking seasons ever. You were 70% completion rate. You had a 9.5 yard per attempt. You had no interceptions, all touchdowns. 80% of your throws were for first downs. You had a 139.4 quarterback rating in that 2004 season. Greatest Packers quarterbacking season ever? And why wasn't there a quarterback controversy?
Well, 3 of those touchdowns came on Monday nights where one we're getting beat 47-3 at Philly. Later on in the season was Tennessee. I think we lost like 38-10 or something like that. So people call that mop-up duty. But I remember against Philly, we got in the huddle. Brett had like, I think it was 32-something games in a row where he had thrown a touchdown until this night. But they still had Brian Dawkins in there, Javon Curse. They were still blitzing. Like, I was still getting the treatment. So it wasn't easy. They weren't laying down. But I think I went 7 for 8 with a couple of touchdowns. And the first one I threw, guess who met me at the numbers celebrating my touchdown? Brett Favre.
Excellent.
He man smiled from ear to ear. He was so happy for me. It was great. But I get in the huddle to call the first play. And I get a couple of words out, and somebody stopped me. I think it might have been Marco Rivera or whatever. They're like, "No, we don't care what you do. Don't take a sack. You don't take a sack." I'm like, "Yes, sir." they had a potential record-setting season for the least amount of sacks in a year.
Okay.
Up until that point, they only had like 8 for the entire season. This is like week 13 or something, 14.
So basically, don't F it up. Is what they were
Don't screw
you.
it up. Yeah, don't take a sack. Well, I ended up getting sacked twice then. One of them was on a 3-step drop back. We're taught to make this automatic protection call, and I did. And I dropped back, and I was just going to throw a slant. I'm like, why is that defensive end underneath the slant? And all of a sudden, there's Brian Dawkins sacking me from my left side that I had. It shifted the protection away from. I'm supposed to be responsible for that, but hell, it's Monday night, and things were a blur.
Wasn't it Marco Rivera's job to make sure you didn't get a sack?
Yeah.
What the hell?
He's got a little skin in the game there somewhere, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I made up for it with a couple touchdowns, and they did end up winning, setting that record. I think they had maybe 12 sacks the entire season, which is amazing. Those guys were really good. So, but somebody told me that season that they got the media guy, that I had the most attempts in a season in Green Bay history without an interception. So I guess I'm somewhere in an obscure record book.
Yeah, I
Hey,
mean
that's not a
that's
bad one to
noteworthy.
be
I mean,
at.
it's at 139.4 quarterback rating. That's a great season. You didn't have an interception in your entire career, right? There's something to be said for that. And did you know that 10% of Javon Walker's touchdown passes were thrown by you?
Yeah, I did actually. Javon and I played it. You know, he was drafted in the same class as me.
Yep.
Javon and I played against each other in high school. He went to St. Thomas More.
Hmm.
Our senior year, he knocked us out of the football playoffs, but then we beat them in baseball playoffs, knocked them out. So got him back.
Did you play baseball too?
I did. Yeah. I had a chance to get drafted in baseball out of high school. I had a couple workouts with Cincinnati and Seattle, but
Okay.
I'd already signed my scholarship to play at LSU. And I mean, I was above average, I guess, but my dad asked the scout that came to work me out one time, like, you know, what are we looking at here? Be honest. And he said, you know, probably 30th round, which probably means like 40th, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I just wasn't willing to get stuck in double A and 3 years later coming back to
Can I
college like a
ask you
lot of
about
guys
that?
do.
Your LSU quarterback room there at LSU, you've got Rohan Davey and Josh Booty in there. Josh is also a pretty good baseball player, right? So who was a better ball player between you and Josh then?
How small he was for sure. I mean, out of high school, the Marlins took him, I think, like sixth or seventh overall.
Wow.
They paid him. So him and Peyton Manning were like number 1 and 2 in the country at quarterback. You know, Shreveport and New Orleans. Obviously, you know what Peyton did. Well, Josh went to the Marlins for 5 years, and
Okay.
then kind of didn't work out, I guess, in the end for him. So he decided to come back to college to play football. But his younger brother Abram, who's my age, was a receiver, so he wanted to play with his younger brother. So
Okay.
that was my third year. So I'd redshirted my first season. Rohan and I both redshirted. I was the backup to Herb Tyler in year two, played in a handful of games. And then year three, Josh comes, but I won the starting job at the beginning of the season, but only played a half. And they told me I was only going to play a half. The next week, Rohan started, and then he started against Auburn. Basically, they put Josh Booty in and played him the rest of the year and never told me
Okay.
why. I ended up moving to receiver halfway through the year just to do something at practice. Like I would go out there and warm up, and that was it. They wouldn't even let me throw 7-on-7 to the defense, like scout team stuff.
You know, I did kind of look at your career. You have a little bit of a roller coaster throughout that career. After that, then you go to Northwestern State and you do really well in that year there. What happens to you when you have those highs and those lows, Craig? Do you reflect on your life, your family, your faith? What's bringing you through those lows to those great points in your career on top of it?
I don't know. I don't quit. I don't give up. I will add that. So after that season, Jerry DiNardo gets fired and Saban comes in. So I stuck it out another year. I didn't transfer right then, but the same stuff was happening with a different coaching staff. That season, that fourth year that I was at LSU, my thumb got broken holding for extra points during pregame at the University of Florida, which I ironically is the only other school that I visited when Spurrier was there. So I had a cast on my hand for 8 weeks. I'm done for the season. You know, I learned how to throw left-handed. I helped coach a little bit, you know, and Jimbo Fisher's offensive coordinator. He's like, man, you're gonna make a head coach one day. But it gave me some time to kind of reflect and say, you know what, where am I going to go to next? I know I can play, but it's obviously not going to work out here. So after the bowl game, we played in the Peach Bowl against Georgia Tech. And the next day, I went in and talked to Coach Saban and asked him to be released, which he granted me. And I had to enroll in Northwestern State because they started school in like 4 days after that.
Hmm.
So the day after I left, Coach Saban calls me back and he said, "Hey, just wanted to let you know there's been a development. Josh Booty has declared himself eligible for the NFL draft, and we would love for you to come back. It'll be just you and Rohan. Best man wins." And I said, "Coach, I appreciate it, but I'm already gone. I'm not coming back." So
Wow.
Rohan had a really good year. Josh ended up getting drafted in the 6th round. The next season, Rohan got drafted in the 4th, and I went in the 5th. So we definitely knew how to play a little bit, but
Yeah, you had a good quarterback room there for sure. Talking about those draft picks, so we talked about what's going through your head when you get drafted to Green Bay. Now let's go into the 2005 season, and you're hanging out there, and you and Brett probably have a good thing going. And we heard a lot about the controversy of how Green Bay drafted Aaron Rodgers in 2005 and whether Brett was told about it. What are you thinking at the time then as well? You're like, oh my gosh, Aaron Rodgers, they pulled this kid in the first round. How did that affect you in your role as well?
pissed, to be honest. I remember sitting there, I was watching the draft by myself in my apartment, and I kept hearing his name and seeing him drop and like, oh, maybe he goes number 10 to wherever.
Mhm.
I just had that sinking feeling that he's going to end up in Green Bay. And when it finally got to the 24th pick and they said his name and all that stuff, I just, okay, here we go. I put my headphones on. I went outside and I ran. That's how I reacted. I ran for an hour straight. I think I ran over 5 miles. I just ran. And I knew it was time to get to work. Even though I had a really good season and back up to Brett, I felt like I had kind of proven myself. I went over, I did the whole Europe thing, led the league in touchdowns and quarterback rating over there. So it was just like, man, here's another first round pick that I got to battle. But I've stuck it out with the other guys. And I had a really good preseason. You look at the stats, Aaron did not, but he's a young rookie and he had to figure some things out. I don't know. I understand the business side of things. He's a first round pick. They got some money tied up into him. He's going to get probably more opportunities than I will, but that doesn't make it any easier to swallow. So
Yeah.
I don't know. My relationship with him was a little bit strained after a while because I don't know. It felt like he couldn't take a joke, and Brett and I had a pretty close relationship, being from the same area of the country. And here's a kid from Northern California that thinks he's hot shit, and you know expects everything to be handed to him. I was just thankful to be there. So I don't know if it was a completely different mindset. I was happy to get drafted. I wasn't expecting to go first round. I wasn't really expecting to make it out after the first year. But here I am in my fourth year, and I've got a chance to play, and I've proven that I belong in this league. And I don't know. He just the way he came in, a little bit cocky and arrogant, and he had some insecurities about not being taken overall, or not being recruited out of high school, and some of those things showed up when he got on the field.
Again, you're in a great quarterback room, right? With these two guys at the time. Did people see the same future for Aaron Rodgers, what he ended up having?
Somebody asked me that year what I thought, his chances of making it. I said, he's obviously talented. You don't get taken in the first round without some talent.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, what his biggest obstacle is going to be is his leadership abilities. And I saw something by Ryan Clark today on ESPN that's kind of, I thought, hit it on the head about him. I don't know. I'm not saying he's not a team player or anything like that, but you look at when he throws a pass that's incomplete or whatever, it's just he rolls his eyes constantly. He points the finger at people. He just doesn't seem like he's the leader that a franchise really needs to take them all the way. I don't know. That's me on the outside looking in. I know there's guys that have played with him that think he's the best thing ever. Obviously he's one of the most talented guys to ever play this game, statistically speaking. But I think there's a right and wrong way of treating people, and I don't see that constantly out of him. Not saying he's not capable, but I don't know. Brett's my guy. I mean, he was a great teammate. He would help me out. He wouldn't always go out of his way to teach me stuff, but every now and then he would like, hey man, try this or watch when I do this. Aaron was expecting him to kind of mentor him. Like, that's not why he's there. He's not going to show you all his tricks and then you take his job. That's why they just drafted you, is to push him out the door,
Yeah. So I want to change to a different comparison. You obviously played both for Mike Sherman and Mike McCarthy. Tell us a little bit about what was different about those two coaches.
Well, Coach Sherman is the one that drafted me, so I was his guy. So right there's a huge difference. McCarthy inherited me during the middle of the season. So I would say that was probably the biggest difference. Coach Sherman went to bat for me on draft day. And I found this out after he got fired after that 2005 season. Coach Bevel, after we had our last meeting, told me to kind of stick around. And he's like, hey, I just want to let you know, I'm really proud of how you've handled yourself here. Yeah, it hasn't been easy. Yeah, but you don't understand what you've been up against. And he started to explain some political things that were going on behind the scenes. He said the personnel department had you ranked as a 7th-round pick at best. They really wanted to bring you in as an undrafted free agent. But Coach Sherman undermined them and drafted me anyway in the 5th round. So each year after my rookie season, when I came back from NFL Europe, they had signed Achilles Smith.
That's right.
He struggled in our system. They ended up having to cut him because he just couldn't get the plays right, it seemed like. The next year, they brought in Tim Couch.
Yep.
Well, he hadn't thrown a ball in 7 months, he told me. So he developed tendonitis in his elbow. They ended up having to cut him. The next year, they drafted Aaron Rodgers. I feel like I outplayed him that preseason. Obviously, you know what he's going on to do, but I always held my own. And he told me that each year they were bringing in somebody to beat me out just to get back at Sherman, saying he don't know what he's talking about. So
And you
So
said,
you end up winning that
I'm not
battle.
having
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
yeah. So for a guy like that, who's the head coach and general manager, to go to bat for me, and I kind of prove him right, I guess you will. We had a great relationship. I got to back to Green Bay in 2007 with McCarthy. This is an interesting little story here. So I've been in Buffalo. I signed a free agent deal with them, 3-year contract. The first year, I pulled my hamstring on the second day of training camp. Ended up being a wash that season. I'm on the 53, but I didn't see the field. The next year, they drafted Trent Edwards in the 3rd round. I had asked to be released with about 2 weeks left to go in training camp. They wouldn't do it. I ended up being the 54th guy. So now I'm on the street. And my base salary, if you're a vested veteran, you're on the Sunday roster for opening day, your salary is guaranteed for the rest of the year. Well, they cut me. JP Lossman gets hurt in week 3. I end up reluctantly having to sign back. My agent forced me to, basically, and end up being there for a month. Had 2 games. We had a bye week. And then that 4th week, I got cut Friday after practice. Friday. I needed that 3rd game for an accredited season. And then let me go. You had to walk through on Saturday and the game's on Sunday. They cut me. Like, okay. So at that point, we're like, we're going to sell this house that we just bought last year. We're out of Buffalo. I just got cut twice in a month. And I ended up selling my house to Marshawn Lynch, who was a rookie that year.
Wow.
So I ended up in Houston for 3 weeks when Schaub got hurt, and then released when he got healthy. So now I fly back up to Buffalo. We pack up the house. We bought a house in Texas, and we're actually traveling down on a Thursday. Well, Green Bay is playing in Dallas, and we stop at some hotel in Ohio, and that hotel didn't have NFL Network, so we had to listen to the game on the radio. And all of a sudden, I don't know, mid-second quarter or whatever, oh, Favre's hurt. He's down. He's in a lot of pain or whatever. Like, oh, no. So Rodgers comes in and plays pretty well. But ultimately, they end up losing the game. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think they were both like 10-0 or 11-0 at the time. So it was a huge NFC matchup. Well, I'm sitting there kind of looking, and we start having a discussion like, what if? Well, sure enough, about 8 o'clock the next morning, I get a call from another 920 area code. Say, hey, did you watch the game last night? Nope, listen to it. I'm in Ohio. You need me to come back? Like, well, you want to come back? Yeah, we need you. Like, all right, send over the contract. So they did. And I told them I got my truck. I could be there in like 10 hours. They said, no, just continue on. We'll fly you in on Sunday. Nobody's here anyway. So I get there Sunday night. Monday, crash course all day, workout, meetings. And then Tuesday, we have an hour-long practice. Normally it's an off day, but since they played on Thursday, they get awarded this extra practice. I'm not even dressed out. I'm in street clothes. I'm listening to Coach Tom Clements. I'm trying to spit the words back out. Mind you, this is my 3rd team of the season. So I got to forget all this other stuff that I was cramming for.
The world.
And I'm potentially one play away from getting in the game. We go through like individual, and then we have a 2-minute period and red zone. And the last play of practice, Rodgers decides to take off scrambling to his left, ends up pulling his hamstring. He ended up being out for a month. So here it is now on Wednesday, the first day of the work week, and I'm the only healthy quarterback. I had to do all of the offensive reps and all the scout team reps for like 2.5 days straight. And the only time I would get a break was like a 5-minute punt period, and I go over there, I'm huffing and puffing. Because it's not like I've been staying up with my workout regimen and just had Thanksgiving, My wife's pregnant with our first child. We're moving from Buffalo to Texas. I got a lot of shit going on.
So there's life happening here. That, oh, by the way, there's this other thing.
Yeah. And Brett's arm is black as can be. Rodgers is hobbling around. Well, I'm the only healthy guy. So if you haven't been to a practice, one of the worst things that can happen in terms of destroying the tempo is for the quarterback to call the play wrong in the huddle. So I would hear it and I would say a couple of words, pause, say a couple more words, and then, okay, on one, ready, break. About every 3 or 4 plays, I had somebody being a smart ass was like, hey, you okay? You're going to die? I'm like, finally I was like, why do y'all keep asking me that? Do I look like I'm about to die here? And they said, no, we just never seen that much sweat on a red jersey before. I'm drenched. Yeah.
Because you were working.
Yeah. But I get like a 5-minute period off to do special teams or whatever. And I'd ask the coach what's coming up next. It'd be like third down blitz. I'm like, great. The most stressful period of all,
Never seen that much sweat on a red jersey before.
Yeah. I think it was Mark Tauscher that said that.
But with that season, though, Craig, you stay through the end of the year, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually played the last regular season game where we have a first round bye. We got home field and all that stuff. So against Detroit, Brett played a quarter and I played the other 3. So I threw my final touchdown in that game on 4th and 2 to Ruvel Martin.
Nice.
It was really on a clear route, but he was wide open. I threw it to him. He scored. So,
Neil, I thought that this was the case. You and Craig have this in common. You both sat in that stadium for that cold January game.
I've actually sat in a stadium with a number of games that Craig has been at. You mentioned that you're friends with Aaron Campman. So in the infamous 2003 game against Philadelphia, the 4th and 26 game, Aaron Campman's family was right in front of me at the link that day. They were, as you said, they're just extremely friendly people. It's like they're the family of an NFL player, and I'm just sort of a random fan, and they were extremely kind to me, and it was really nice hanging out with them at that game. So,
Neil, you had to bring up 4th and 26, didn't you?
I'm sorry.
We could have won the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah,
we really could have. We had a great squad.
We know.
We're all fans.
But
we understand.
So in 07, I did finish the season with them. We lost in the NFC Championship game in overtime, as you guys know. I think it was like -4 degrees or something.
I was there.
I was there.
Yeah.
So.
It was brutal. And we had it won. It just that muff punt, man. Just fall on it instead of scooping and scoring.
Yeah.
I was already thinking what I was going to do with this extra 100,000.
Nice.
So I'd been unemployed for a few weeks that season, as you guys know. And I had visions of sugar plums dancing my head.
Well, it was cold enough for that, but it was
yeah.
That is a
lesson. I was bundled up, man. I had a couple layers on. I had a park Vaseline on my face. I was good.
That's a lesson in counting those chickens before they're hatched, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt.
So hey, I want to get back to the 04 sack total. It was 14 overall, of which you accounted for 2. So
yeah,
no, his line accounted.
His
for
line
2.
accounted for 14 total sacks for 101 yards. I was at 14.
That's pretty amazing, man. When you consider there was probably 350 attempts.
Hey, Craig, one of the other things we like to do on the podcast is actually talk about the games that get played. So just first curious if you had a chance to watch the Packers-Cardinals game. But not just that, you mentioned, or I mentioned, I should say, we talked about you being in this quarterback room with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And you've got to look at both of those quarterbacks. Now watching Jordan Love play, what's your assessment of Jordan Love?
He really turned the page about halfway through the season last year. It was like week 9. Light bulb came on for him. He did the same thing that Aaron did. He sat for a few years, and obviously the game started to kind of slow down for him a little bit halfway through the season. I think he's a great player. I was kind of shocked when they took him, as probably most people were. Nobody more so than Aaron Rodgers.
There's that.
Yeah, like hey man, this is exactly what happened when you came in the league. But I don't know. Mechanically, I hate seeing him throwing off his back foot all the time. I think he found some success doing that. He's seeing Rodgers do it, and now it's become like his driving range 7-iron. Like you don't always need to do that. Sometimes there's a need for like a trap draw or whatever, or a high cut. But man, just I don't know. And it bit him in the ass a couple of times.
Yeah,
throwing interceptions that are just a little bit short. So I don't know. I think he's got a good deal going there with LaFleur. He's got a bunch of young receivers that are pretty talented. It's good to see Watson get a touchdown.
Yeah.
get him back on the field healthy. Dobbs had a couple. Wicks, I think having Jacobs in the backfield was good. Wilson showed some flash. He's a young player, so they're a pretty talented group. And then that defense has been playing lights out. I think if they're not at the top, they're like 2 or 3 in terms of turnovers they've created on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, they made Arizona look silly yesterday. So,
well,
and it was awesome.
Yeah. For a Packers quarterback to throw 4 or more touchdowns in consecutive games, as he did last week and this week, first time that has happened since Brett Favre did it in 1995. So I think the Packer faithful have a lot of faith in Jordan Love as well.
Yeah. I just hope it's not that they're throwing the ball a ton more because they can't run it, but
yeah,
I don't think that's really the case. I think they got a good running game. Just, man, got to keep those guys up front healthy. It's vitally important for those same 5 guys to continuously play together because their communication, you kind of finish each other's sentences. If you're plugging and playing at the offensive line, things start to kind of sputter,
And
so hopefully
coming into
they
town,
stay healthy.
Coming into town this week, one of your other former teams, the Houston Texans, do you pay attention to that team as well? And taking a look at CJ Stroud, what kind of thoughts do you have on Houston?
Yeah, so I mentioned the Elite 11. CJ Stroud was our MVP a number of years ago. Gerard Johnson, who's been one of my colleagues with the Elite 11, is the quarterback coach for the Texans. D'Amico Ryans was my teammate when I was in Houston. So I've got a lot of ties there. I follow those guys pretty close, and living in Texas, I hate the Cowboys with a passion. So to see the Texans doing well, makes my heart happy. So they got, they won a playoff game last year. First year head coach, first year quarterback. So they're for real. They got a chance to really be a contender in the AFC for a long time.
You're in Texas. Obviously, you love those Texans player, former Packers player. Are your sons Packers fans, Texans fans, or something else?
So I have 4 teams that I root for. Obviously, Green Bay, the Texans, Buffalo, and then being from Louisiana, I like to see my Saints doing well. So I have 2 from the NFC and 2 from the AFC.
All right.
But I think if I had to say, like, okay, you're going into the Hall of Fame, what are you going to go as? It would be a Green Bay Packer because they chose me, and I spent most of my career there. Such a special place, all the tradition, the guys that have come before us. It's the Lombardi Trophy, and Lambeau is just hallowed ground. So yeah, my kids, their buddies at school think I'm the coolest ever.
Nice.
And that's important for teenage
Craig
boys.
Nall,
You got something going there.
So I'm like the fun uncle to them,
Talk
Excellent.
about those 3 teams that you played for. Not just the teams I know you pay attention to, but what do you think of like how the front offices handle things? We grew up in the bad 70s and 80s in Green Bay, so we're ecstatic of what this last 30 years has been like. But seeing it from the inside, how Buffalo got ran, how Houston's getting run, and how Green Bay is getting run. How do you rank those teams, and what do you see in the future for them?
In terms of those 3, I would put Green Bay first. I think they have the most structure. And maybe it's because they don't have an individual owner like a Jerry Jones that's screwing up decisions and doing things their own way. They've got a board of directors and they have a kind of checks and balances. I enjoyed my time in Houston, but they were kind of a newer franchise. I think they were still kind of working out some of the kinks. I can't remember the general manager's name at the time, but he was a young guy. He was in his early 30s, the general manager for an NFL franchise. I think that's a tough ask. And then Buffalo, I mean, they brought in Marv Levy as the general manager. And when I took my visit over there, I sat down with Coach Levy, and he told me, he said, look, I've watched all your film from Green Bay. I think you have a real shot here. I love how you play in cold weather. You're a big guy. You can take some hits. You just need a chance. He said, so I am pulling for you to come here. But I just want to let you know, they brought me in as a personnel consultant. I don't do anything with contracts or money or anything like that. So the title general manager for him was really kind of like an honorary position, if you will. So there were some things that happened behind the scenes where I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in how that organization was being run. And Ralph Wilson was still the owner at the time. There were some things that he did I didn't agree with. They drafted a guy in the 3rd round my next year that I was told I was going to be the backup. And nobody had an explanation for that one. They're like, we didn't really plan on taking a quarterback that day, but they did. So I don't know. I think Green Bay does it right. Houston's got something going now. Buffalo's had some success as of late, so my personal experience, Green Bay is where it's at.
So, given your experience as a quarterback, which is your favorite current quarterback in the NFL to watch play? The one that you think really is an exciting player to watch that has the most long-term potential?
I really like watching CJ Stroud. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL of everybody that's playing right now. But he's a man of faith. He is very much a vocal leader. He shows, I know him personally. I've seen him interact. I saw when he was at the Elite 11 finals how he just soaked up everything. He would seek out information. He was a sponge. Like he just loves being that guy. And I think you're seeing that translate into wins. So he's probably my favorite young quarterback to watch. I'm also a huge Matt Stafford fan. I mean, that guy, he had some bad years in Detroit, but he's still sticking out, and for him to get a Super Bowl a couple years ago, I think was just amazing. Baker Mayfield's a lot of fun. He's crazy. He's kind of like Brett. He's going to do something stupid every
Little
game.
Farvian in there, yeah.
Yeah. And I know he's kind of modeled his game after Brett, but I don't know. It's hard not to watch some of the things that Josh Allen does in Buffalo. And like, man, that dude, he's just an athlete.
Mhm.
He makes some dumb decisions too, but it's kind of like if you have an arm like that, I kind of look at it as like you have a Ferrari that's your daily driver. You're probably going to get a speeding ticket at some point. You got to test it out every
Because you
now and then. You
can.
got to push it. Yeah, it might not be the smartest thing to do, but like I don't know what it's like to be able to throw the ball 85 yards or whatever. I wasn't very fast. I couldn't run like he is. I mean, he's 6'5", 6'6", 245. So I think that the state of the quarterback in the NFL, these young guys that are playing, I think we're in good hands. Caleb Williams, he was also Elite 11 MVP. Bo Nix is one of those guys. Jalen Hurts, Deshaun Watson, Sam Darnold. I've worked with all those guys. They've
Wow.
all come through the Elite 11 program. So I know a lot of these guys personally. Now, I got to see them before their senior year of high school. So obviously they've developed, but we do a pretty good job of seeing what these guys are capable of doing early on.
Do you have a knack for spotting that it factor? I mean, when you see a kid in high school who is an athlete that's going to go somewhere, there's like a glow about him that sticks out. Do you see that in these guys? Are you able to pick out who these guys are when you see them?
Yeah, I had Trevor Lawrence as my quarterback for 7-on-7 at the opening that year. I got to drive that Ferrari for a week, call plays for him, which is really cool. He do things that I would never be able to do. So yeah, there are some guys that you're just like he's a can't miss. But then you have other guys like Stetson Bennett the fourth, who ends up winning a natty. Like, hey, thanks for coming out, kid, but you know he's got a lot of grit. So for him to make it to the NFL and have the success he has, it's not an exact science, and there's a lot of debate that goes in when we pick these guys to go to the finals. We hit on most of them, some of them we miss. We brought Anthony Richardson in, really made a position for him. We took 18, but Trent Dilfer's like, I want him to come and just experience this because he was so raw. And so we actually had 19 that year. I think Kyler Murray was there too.
Wow.
So to see Anthony Richardson actually starting in the NFL now, it's like, wow, man, I remember that kid. He couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, but he was just such an amazing athlete that they had to give him an opportunity.
Yeah.
Are there any kids, pick a name or two that 4 or 5 years from now we have to know this name?
One kid that I work with, I've known him since he was 7 years old. His dad coaches in the NFL, is Garrett Nussmeier at LSU.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a baller. He's not the biggest kid, a little over 6 foot, probably 6'1", 210. But man, he's grown up around football. He's a competitor, is what we call him.
All right.
It's somebody that always competes, not just a competitor. He's very driven. He's having success. He had to sit behind Jaden Daniels the last couple of seasons. So I look for him, finish the season strong. That game against Ole Miss the other night, yeah, he had a little rough outing to begin with, but you saw the essence of Garrett Nussmeier there in the end, completing touchdown on 4th and 7 and then winning it in overtime. So he's somebody that I would definitely look out for. His dad's the quarterback coach for the Philadelphia
So we got to put you this Sunday, Houston Texans at Green Bay Packers. Give us a prediction. What do you think's going to happen? Who are you rooting for?
Yeah.
You knew this was coming.
Yeah. I'll say Green Bay 34, Houston 31. I think it's going to be
an exciting game.
Big shootout.
Excellent.
Neil,
I think Joe Mixon is back healthy, so Houston's got a running game again. But they're both playing great defense, and they're young and hungry. So I think it'll be a good game. I think Green Bay's going to win at home, though. It's hard to play in Lambeau.
The other thing I've been curious about, Craig, is your jersey number. Guys get superstitious about jersey numbers. They kind of get them. They stick with them. You'll notice I've got a Packers 16 up here covering my usual Brett Favre there. That was my number as well. When I was in high school, we didn't have great Packer players, but our high school where Neil and I went, our colors were red and white. And there was this guy named Joe Montana on a red team that played pretty well. So I picked number 16 back then. You wore 16 high school. You wore it in the pros. Why did you pick number 16?
Same guy, man, Joe Montana.
Yeah.
In the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, when I was junior high and early high school, they were the team to beat. He's winning Super Bowls. I didn't really have a favorite team growing up. Being from Louisiana and being a 49ers fan wasn't really a thing. But you couldn't root for the Saints because, they're wearing paper bags on their heads at that time. Yeah, they're the Aints. So I don't know. I just gravitated to Joe Montana because he was kind of an underdog. He only played for 1 year in college, and he wasn't the flashiest of people, but man, he would get the job done. So I kind of wore number 16 because I like Joe Montana. So that's kind of how it started. So I had that number pretty much my whole career, all the way through high school, in college. And then I got drafted to Green Bay. My rookie years, there was a receiver on our roster. I'm not sure who it was, but 16 was already taken. So they gave me 12. And like I said, I wasn't in a position to be paying $10,000 or whatever, guys, like, hey, I've got to have that number. I was just happy to be there. So 12 it is, but that receiver ended up getting released. And I kind of said, hey, that number 16 is available. I want it next year. So they gave
pretty
it to
good.
me. Yeah. So I got my number back.
Nice. And then finally, tell us a little bit about your Elite 11. Where are you now? What do you got going on, Craig?
Yeah, so I've been with the Elite 11 for 12 years now. 2013, I get a phone call from Trent Dilfer, who I knew of. I might have met him once or twice, but didn't know him well. One of the kids that I was coaching at the time in Frisco, Texas, had submitted one of our training tapes to be evaluated and get invited to an Elite 11 event. Well, Trent heard the video, heard what I was coaching, and said, man, this guy is speaking my language. Who is this guy? So he ended up getting my contact information from the dad and called me up and said, I need you on my staff. And here I am 12 years later. Trent's now coaching in college, so he's not really involved in what we're doing, but he definitely laid the foundation of a lot of things philosophy-wise that I teach in terms of stroke mechanics and footwork and timing. Like I said, we kind of coach similar as it is, but he provided an opportunity to be able to travel around and work with these young kids that I just mentioned that are now superstars in the league. So I've done that. I did private lessons and group stuff in the DFW area for 15 years. A year and a half ago, I kind of put that on pause. I had some life changes, if you will. I mentioned I lost my dad, but I had to focus on my health. My blood pressure was sky high. It was like a year and a half ago, it was like 200 over 130. So in that process, I made the decision to stop drinking. So I'm in recovery, enjoying every minute of that. I'm really at peace. I've got a great support system. My relationship with my boys is better than it's ever been. I have a girlfriend that I've been with for about a year and a half now. Her name's Jessica. I really think she's an angel sent by God at the right time in my life. Started a new job last year. A good friend of mine was going to take over broker-dealer for an oil and gas company. So after 5 years of commercial real estate and business brokerage, I decided to pivot. So I had to pass 3 different exams, become a registered representative with the SEC, which I did. And after a year of that, my friend Patrick that brought me on had started another company and brought me on as operations foreman. So still oil and gas, but not in sales, on the operations side. So we're talking a salary and not having to pick up the phone and cold call. One of the companies that we're acquiring has a technology that is going to allow us to mine lithium here in the United States. So I'm up here in Chicago actually right now for the next couple of weeks, learning some of the systems that is going to take for us to be able to extract lithium out of brine water and other sources. It's very technical. There's a lot of chemistry. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing, but the answer is yes. I've got a job. I'm happy. Life is good. My mom's doing great. He's actually watching the boys back home in Texas right now. Yeah, that's about it. I'm trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up still.
Awesome. Hey, we're in the same boat, Craig. So we appreciate you joining us. Gentlemen, any final thoughts going into week 7?
It's going to be exciting watching the best young quarterbacks play each other in this upcoming week. The Packers offense and defense both were spectacular against Arizona. It is fun watching the development of this team. Craig, it was really fun talking to you. Go Pack, go.
Middle of October at Lambeau, home crowd, a great team, a 12 o'clock game. It may be good for the tailgaters, but I like to see a national game on that. That's okay. I think the Packers seem to be getting into a rhythm, both on offense and defense, sort of finding their way. This is going to be a tough Texans team coming in. As we've talked about, 2 great young quarterbacks, a lot of things going for both of these teams. I think we're going to see them go far into the playoffs, and hoping for a Packer win on a beautiful fall afternoon at Lambeau. Go Pack, go.
You know, that rain did not deter the tailgaters. We had a great day Sunday at the Lot 1 tailgate party. Arizona fans didn't show up too much. I expect the Houston fans to be coming around. And this is, I think, a game that a lot of Packer fans had targeted. We have temperatures looking sunny. Neil, projected high temperature for Sunday, 69 degrees.
Nice.
So we expect a great game on Sunday and a great day for tailgating. And Craig, the next time you are in Green Bay, you are absolutely invited to come and hang out at the Lot 1 tailgate party, and we will show you a good time on the outside of Lambeau Field, because I know you know how good it is on the inside. All right.
Yes, sir. Guys, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. Just the off chance you guys go into the Redwood and see this obscure memorabilia of number 16. Like, who the hell is this guy? They're calling me up. As you can tell, I'm still very much a fan. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and share a laugh. Go Pack, go.
Craig, we absolutely love that you joined us. Thank you very much. Everyone else, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe and leave a comment. You can find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. On Facebook, it's the GBC podcast Green Bay Chat. And you can be just like Craig Nall and follow us on any and all of those social media platforms. May you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
All right.